If there's one thing I hope people, a majority of people, come out of this week's episode of The Day I Became a God, is they don't take Yoda confessing a I love you to Hina as a romantic I love you. You do not follow up immediately saying that my mother, my father, my sister, all of my friends love you just as I do, if it's romantic. That is 100% a family love. Yoda is in love with his crush. He's 17 to 18 in this show. Hina looks to be about 12. Even if you argued she was 15, he does not love her in that way. He loves her as a family, as a sister, the same way he loves his own sister. So I really hope there isn't going to be those shipping comments. I know there will be, but let's all come to a general understanding that you don't follow up saying, I love you in that way if you're talking about your family. And people may want to say, oh, he had a hard time confessing his feelings to his original crush. That's just the same thing. No, that's him saying, we cherish you as a family member. You are not disposable. Run for your life and we will find a way to take care of you. And that's what makes that scene so powerful in my humble opinion. This episode answered a hell of a lot. There was still some uncertainty about what Hina was. Was she a clone? Was she a robot? Or was this a girl that somehow had some experimentation done to cure a disease temporarily that never should have been able to be cured? Seemingly, she is the same girl, just with a microchip put into her brain that allows her to be more powerful than any computer known to man, and in doing so is more dangerous than any weapon that the world has ever known. And it's quite interesting to see the direction they took with the hacker angle, because I think most of us watching probably assumed that Suzuki was probably going to be not the greatest of guys. He just kind of seemed like he was more in it for the technology angle rather than human compassion. But to see the episode progress and to learn about his parents and how they used him for money laundering and how stealing money, and then eventually, when he got to a decent enough age that he understood what he was doing was wrong, his parents beat him to the point that he probably wanted to kill himself by the looks of it. And when he comes home one day and his parents are seemingly dead, probably some gang activity probably came, they didn't have the money, they got killed. He laughed in the face of they got what they deserved. It's very interesting watching a character who really gave me out of first impressions, because we haven't seen him a hell of a lot. The type of character who had no compassion, no empathy, and probably was in it and would gladly rip a chip from a little girl's head if it meant being able to study technology even more, is actually the difference between giving a girl a heads up or not. It's so fascinating to see a type of character who hates adults, which is a trope we've seen before, but done in a way that actually feels quite unique, especially compared to how it's usually handled. Generally, when I see the characters who are very smart and hate adults, it's pretty cardboard cutout in my humble opinion, but to see what they're able to accomplish with his backstory and how he's currently being treated. How he's currently being treated, I actually don't think is all that bad from the CEO. The CEO generally does care for him. You can tell that she feels bad that a kid was raised by such shitty parents that he came to the point that he could laugh at a murder scene because that just gives him a sigh of relief. She wanted him to use his abilities for good, but because he was raised so shittily for most of his life, it's hard to correct that behavior overnight. It still doesn't change the fact that this whole organization does lack compassion, but to play devil's advocate, if there is a supercomputer in some kid's brain that the world is not ready to have, that could hack into anything, could do anything, and is more powerful than the human mind, you can't argue in logic sense that that one girl's life is more valuable than protecting the world's, peace of mind. The world is not ready for that type of technology, and unfortunately that means you have to remove that chip and hide it until the world is. Now, you could also argue that different countries will probably want it for themselves, which is true. To me, the only way to safely secure it is by destroying it, because the world is not going to be ready anytime soon, if ever. So you probably want to destroy it, but that would in return kill Hina's life. So the idea of her kind of blocking out what the end of the world actually was is something that I was kind of assuming early on, but then kind of quickly just didn't really focus in on it too much. But they come back to the point where after he gives her the kind of heads up that they're coming, it feels to her like her grandfather's words reaching her, and she realizes that she clouded her own vision, that the end of the world wasn't the end of the world for everyone, it was the end of her own life. And for her, the 30-day time limit was always going to be that eventually people would discover her and what's happening. And it's interesting too, because one of the biggest reasons that they were ever able to find what happened is because she did so many things for Yoda's friends and family that there's only one logical explanation, that there's some sort of experimentation going on here, and a girl that should have died somehow is living peace and sound. So it's interesting because when they were building up to this, it felt to me like this kid was going to be the way that she gets exposed and that she would obviously die because something would happen to her. But the idea that he actually feels such regret that not only was he the reason that she was found out, that they're going to treat her so shittily, that adults once again are harming kids, and it just pisses him off that he continues to do whatever it is he can. With the way that this episode functioned, it feels more like an episode 11 rather than an episode 9, so with 3 episodes left to go, I'm curious what's going to happen. I still firmly believe Hina will end up dead. I feel like what they're going to do, where the CEO and the group and everyone who made this decision that the chip has to be removed, it seems to me most likely that that's what they want to do. Obviously, Yoda wants to protect her. I feel like what's probably going to happen is it's going to tie into this hacker and Hina, and they're going to remove the chip, if not destroy the chip. They probably won't remove it because he has the ability to hack so well. I wouldn't be surprised if he hacks into her mind and she lets him in, and it allows for him to deactivate the chip so it's completely useless and she kind of has a sad goodbye and we all cry and things like that. I could very much see something like that happening. I would say the thing that shocks me and makes me the most happy about this episode is that someone like Suzuki ended up having such a good heart but was just betrayed by the adults around him that he can no longer trust those who are older than him. So it's going to be very fascinating to see where they're going to take these final few episodes. Without a doubt, this was one of the more visually striking episodes. One of the things I can really praise visually is whenever you have hacking scenes, generally they're pretty cardboard cut out with what you generally assume is going to happen. But the idea of like going in this technological world, swimming in an ocean, they had a lot of fun. It was a little weird and off-putting at first, but once I really kind of like said, you know what, we're in a hacking world, we're not actually supernatural firing laser blasts, it really did make me appreciate the visual directing and what they're able to accomplish with this sequence. It just feels to me that The Day I Became a God had some of the best comedy, had some of the best slice of life that I've seen over the past couple of anime seasons, but I knew had the potential to get very sad and really stick its landing. From the very beginning, you can go back to my first episode review and all the reviews, I've always said that this could have the best pacing for Jun Maeda. And I feel like it really does. Generally with his shows, they incorporate far too much at the very last stretch, and generally this is what his episode 11 would look like. They would throw it all in episode 11 and it would feel rushed. But to have this happen at episode 9 out of a 12 episode anime, I don't think many people can argue unless they're really just trying to assume that this is going to have a shitty ending. This feels like it's very properly paced. The characters are kind of, you know, they're all feeling important in some capacities, and while it is a little goofy when they're all dressed up like medieval soldiers trying to fight off, you know, security guards and stuff, it just feels like the bonds we made over the summer are very important, and everyone cares for Hina. Everyone loves Hina in this cast, and they want her to be able to have a normal life, but unfortunately she can't. The one thing you can say is that even though she probably is going to die, she at least made some really good memories far past her life expectancy should have allowed. Good side to it if you look at it like that, but it's going to be interesting to see because we're getting into a sad ending. I don't think anyone can convince anyone otherwise, but I guess only time will tell. I think this episode has some of the best moments. I mean, the I love you scene and just showing her that everyone cares for her and that she's not just some tool. It really does put into perspective what her life had meaning for and that people other than her grandfather had the ability to love her, something she never thought possible. Incredible episode. The hacker angle with Suzuki I thought was incredible. It's nice to see that his hacking abilities does come from like this earpiece that he wears, because they do talk about should we take it from him, and the one guy who generally cares for him is saying no, leave it. I feel like that's him saying, you know, give her a heads up because you're a genuine guy. I feel like that's why he let him keep it. There's just a lot of great moments across the board. This is a fantastic anime, a fantastic episode, and it's emotionally draining. It's, you know, when it rains, it definitely pours, and this episode is definitely approaching that phrase quite well. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below, your favorite moment, and where do you think the final stretch is going to lead us. If you enjoyed the video, of course, we would like to show your support and hit that subscribe button if you have been new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.